Have you got any thoughts on the topic of goals and how it relates to clout?
Yes, people people with real clout have a real clear sense of purpose. And I talk about this a lot. I've written some articles on it, and I talk with clients about it on occasionally, especially people that are in the small business arena, because small business is largely entrepreneurial in nature. It's all about what you bring to the party, how long you're willing to work, what you're willing to risk in order to get what you want. That's the very definition of people who want to start something up and build it up to where it's a successful venture. And so what I tell people a lot of times is if you have clout, if you're trying to possess that, it's because there's something in your life of purpose that you are continually drawn to. It's what I call having a calling, almost like internal GPS. Regardless of where you are and who you're talking to, it always manages to point you in the same direction. People with real clout, they already have a purpose. They know where they're going in their life's path. They know what the end game is. That's the kind of thing that other people will feel. You might never see it because they don't talk about it. If you're really looking at how to incorporate goals, you've got to decide, what's my life path first? What am I here to do? What value do I have to extend to others that can be bolted onto that direction? And the longer you stay with it, the less goals become cyclical and the more it just becomes kind of a running theme of what you're here to do.
I really like the way that you rephrase it as the calling, your calling in your life. Have you got any thoughts around if people are struggling with the concept of what their calling is, how they might go about finding that?
I I think I'm a big proponent of the Pareto principle, which what we commonly refer to as the 80-20 rule. And I believe most of society, probably in that 80% range, has real significant problems with life's purpose. They might, and here's another interesting statistic, and this is not recent, this has been going on for decades. Over 85% of all people that graduate from higher education don't ultimately pursue a career that has anything to do with their education. So, right off the bat, we've learned early on that it's okay to leave behind something you spent a lot of time and money acquiring to go after something else that covers an immediate need. And so I think what happens is along the way, people lose touch with what it was they really wanted early on because other things got in the way that were more pressing. So I do believe lots of people have trouble with that. They get into certain careers, all of a sudden 20 years has passed, and they're out of love with it. Now it's a way to make a paycheck, and they're desperately looking to get out, but they can't figure out how to do that. To somebody that I was just chatting with that really had that issue, and it depends on a lot of things. How much people depend on you in your family structure? Are you the main breadwinner, so to speak? How old are you? How much runway do you have in front of you? Back when I was a kid, anybody ahead of me that was broaching 60 years old, I mean, that was the end of life, and a lot of stuff has happened between then and now. And I routinely run into people who are running businesses actively and they're in their early 70s. So a lot has changed, but a lot also means what's your desire to keep going? Some people will work, and you read about the famous people all the time in their 80s, and until they're still cognitively sound, they're still doing what they love. It's not about the money or the fame anymore. They just love doing it, and it's their way of staying current and relevant and surviving for as long as they can. But most people don't think that way. Most people think compartmentally. This is my life now. I have to do this to satisfy this. I'll worry about tomorrow later. Tomorrow never really shows up. All of a sudden, one day they're at retirement and they haven't really prepared themselves for what that next phase looks like. So early on, what I try to get people to realize is, what do you really want? Because it's the want factor that drives people's desire to change, not what you need. We all endeavor to try to cover our needs, but needs are not the emotional fuel that will actually make you decide to change and go off in a different direction. So until you can clarify what that looks like and then step back and say, okay, how would I transform myself from where I am now to what I want to be, that could take a year or 2 years. You have, if you're journey focused, you've got to be willing to spend that time doing it. It's the realization of what's most important to them. And it's the understanding of what it will take from an effort and a time standpoint to ellipse over into doing what they like. A lot of people do. A lot of people do, but a lot of people get stuck and they spend the rest of their life in that stuck mode because they don't know how to take that first step.